Okay, in today's video, we're going to learn about the slope-intercept form of a line. We have two objectives for this lesson. One is to be able to write the slope-intercept form of the equation of a line, being given either its graph or information about it. And the other objective is to graph the line if we were to be given the slope-intercept form of that equation. Let's define two terms. The first term I want to define is the y-intercept. The y-intercept is the point where a graph crosses the y-axis. The other term we need to define is slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is really a type of equation. The slope-intercept form of a line is always y equals mx plus b. And each one of these has a meaning. The y and the x are simply the variables from our coordinate grid, from our y-axis and our x-axis. The m stands for slope, and the b stands for the y-intercept. Now let's look at some examples that will help us see how this is used. Here's our first example. We're going to write the equation in slope-intercept form for this line. You see our line? Here's everything we need. Remember that the letter B stands for our slope-intercept form from our previous screen. And we already know that m stands for the slope. So I'm going to go over to my line and I'm going to look for where it crosses the y-axis. The y-axis is the vertical axis, and the line crosses it at 2. So in this case, my y-intercept is 2. Now I need to find a slope. I need to pick another point. We can draw the triangle and then determine what our slope would be. I'm going to look for a place where my line goes through my grid, through those meeting points. I have one point right here where my y-intercept is, and I have another point right here, my other point. And I'm going to find my slope by drawing my triangle between these 2 points. And I can measure my rise over run. Rise, slope is rise over run. So I'll put those numbers in. When I count my rise, I have, going from here, the height of this line, starting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My rise is 5. Now doing the run, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. My run is 4. And I know that it's going to be a positive 5/4 because if I put my skier on this slope, he's going to have to move uphill. And that's a positive slope when you have to go uphill. So my slope is 5/4. My y-intercept is 2. Now my job is to find the slope-intercept form of this equation. I'm going to keep in mind that the slope-intercept form of my equation is y equals mx plus b. And I'm going to get my m and my b. This m is this m. This b is this b. So I'll just take those numbers and put them right into my equation. So y equals 5/4 x plus 2. And that is the slope-intercept form of this equation. Let's look at example number 2. Again, we're trying to write the equation in slope-intercept form of the line. So my first task is, let's find out where the line crosses the y-axis. And from looking at this particular graph, it's crossing at -1. So b is -1. Let's mark that point. And now we need to find the next best point. Where is it going through a nice little perfect grid? And there's a lot of close candidates. That's really close. That's really close. So is that one. So is that one. So is this one. This point right here is the next best point to use when trying to find our slope. So I'm going to draw my triangle between my points so I can do my rise over run. And my rise is starting here, 1, 2. And my run is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The other thing we have to decide is if this is a positive or a negative slope. This slope is going downhill as we go left to right. So that is a negative slope. Our slope is -2/5. Now I can take those numbers and substitute them in to my slope-intercept form. I know what my slope is. It's -2/5. So 2/5 x plus whatever b is, which is -1. We could also write that, instead of saying plus a -1, another way we could write this is -2/5 x minus 1. Either one of those will work fine. Alright, here's example number 3. I would like for you to try this one on your own. And just to make sure that we all stay on the same page, I'm going to mark the points that I want you to use. We'll use this point, which has special significance, and we will use this point right at the tip of our arrow. So use those 2 points to find everything you need to do example number 3. Hit pause, try this problem on your own, and then hit play so you can see how you did. Okay, to find our y-intercept first, this point I've already marked for you where it crosses the y-axis. It crosses the y-axis at -1. And now to find the slope, I'm going to draw my triangle and do rise over run. My rise is 1, 2, 3, 4. And my run is 1, 2, just 1. There's over one spot from that point to here. And it is a negative slope because it's going downhill, very steeply downhill, I might add. And 4 over 1 reduces to just plain old 4. So our slope is -4. Now, the slope-intercept form of an equation is y equals mx plus b. I'm going to just substitute my numbers in. So y equals -4x minus 1. And that is the slope-intercept form of an equation. When you substitute it in, you may have had something like -4x plus a -1 because our y-intercept was -1. And either one of these forms would be fine. Either that one or this one would be acceptable. Okay, if you're following along with your sheet at home, I've skipped examples 4 and 5 on purpose, and this is example number 6 because 4 and 5 are special cases that I want to treat after doing all of these. So I would like for you to hit stop, and try to write the form of this equation on your own before listening to the solution. Alright, here's the solution. The first thing we want to do is mark our y-intercept. Here's our y-intercept. Y-intercept is -3. And now I want to find the slope, and the next best point for finding the slope would be this point right here. And so this would be our triangle outlined in pink. And to find our slope, rise over run. Our rise is 2. Our run is 1. It's a downhill slope, so it's -2. So it reduces to -2. To find our equation, y equals mx plus b is our slope-intercept form of the equation. So our final answer, our slope is -2, so -2x minus 3. Okay, now I want to deal with two very special cases. The first one is for a vertical line. If you will recall, when doing a vertical line has an undefined slope. Because of that, a vertical line doesn't really have a slope-intercept form. Here's one thing we do know about vertical lines. If I look at my line, and if I try to plot any point on my vertical line, doesn't matter where it is, In every single instance, the x-coordinate is going to be the same. The x-coordinate of this point is positive 3. Of that point is positive 3. Positive 3. Positive 3. Positive 3. Positive 3. So with a vertical line, it will always be x equals something. And that'll be whatever that point is where it crosses the x-axis. Again, this is a special case only for vertical lines. And in this case, the x is 3. So the equation for this vertical line is x equals 3. If my vertical line was here, the equation for that one, it crosses the x-axis at negative 3, would be x equals negative 3. If I had another line, we'll do this one in red. I kind of missed my mark, but the equation for that line would be x equals 1. Only for vertical line do you just have an x and no y. Our other special case is when we have a horizontal line. Here's what we know. Every horizontal line has a slope of 0. And in this instance, it crosses the y-axis at 2, so my y-intercept is 2. If I put this into my slope-intercept form of an equation, y equals mx plus b, y equals 0x plus 2, and we look at this situation, we know that 0 times anything is 0, so all we're left with is really y equals 2. So just like a vertical line only has x's, a horizontal line only has y's. Now that might not make sense at first because the horizontal axis we know is the x-axis, and the vertical axis is the y-axis, so it kind of seems opposite. Well, here's the thing to remember. A horizontal line, there is no rise, so it never changes. The y is always the same. If we were to plot these points and get the coordinates, this point, that point, that point, every point on that line will have the same y coordinate, which will be 2. And that's why the equation of a horizontal line is always y equals something. So, to summarize, the slope-intercept form of an equation is y equals mx plus b. And we know that the m stands for the slope, and the b stands for the y-intercept, which is where our graph crosses the y-axis. And once we have those, we can just make a simple equation, easy as pie.